And as a result, I don't anticipate that there's any breakthrough that's going to occur with Ambassador Bosworth. I can only speculate, and I will if you want. But before we do that, let's conclude our presentation by showing you some, here we are. For those that you don't know, this is the one strange-looking guy is me. The other one is Lee Good. Scott Snyder is on the far left. You recognize Ms. Finnemann. But let me turn over this part of the presentation to Nicole, please.
All right. Well, in addition to trying to remember whatever Ambassador Pritchard forgets, we did take quite a few pictures on our trip between the two of us. We have some 400 pictures that later this afternoon will be up online. Only going to show you just a few. What's interesting from my perspective is of the two trips I've taken, there were 18 months in between, which wouldn't necessarily be a lot on North Korean standards, but there was a significant difference in what I saw as just my own perceptions, in addition to what Ambassador Pritchard got. So you've seen the first picture. Overall impressions of Pyongyang, this is the view from the 26th floor of the Koryo Hotel, was that the 150-day campaign produced quite a bit of visible difference in the streets of Pyongyang. The buildings were all freshly painted. The buildings along the avenues we drove were all very freshly painted. The sidewalks had been repaired. What we saw was tempered with the questions we were able to ask our foreign ministry, escorts, and also the British diplomats' stories of what their experience is. So we've been piecing together the stories from both sides. I have this picture from 2008, and the road and the sidewalk are completely torn up, being relaid brick by brick. A number of young school-aged boys doing it, and it's all finished now. Again, these are newly painted. The roads have all been repaired. They showed us entirely new avenues that are leading to these new housing projects of the 100,000 homes that are being built. Again, everything was immaculate. New housing right between the airport and Pyongyang. The new uniforms. The umbrella structure wasn't there in 2008. It was just the circle that the traffic guards stood in. And this is all new, as well as new issued uniform that we saw. A number of not only the traffic guides, but the police and the traffic police as well. They looked very comfortable as opposed to the last time we saw them. Overall, it was hard to find. I mean, it's never easy to find dirt or trash in Pyongyang, but it was very clean. We saw people scrubbing on their hands and knees, scrubbing the sidewalks every morning. I took a walk around downtown. I saw new handbags, new leather jackets, new haircuts, galore actually. Something that was also really interesting: the proliferation of cell phones. In 2008, there were none. We didn't see anybody using any. 50,000 North Koreans, we're told, now have cell phones, and we saw them everywhere. The women working behind the desk at the Koryo Hotel, the drivers, our escorts. Everybody has cell phones, it seemed, and it was very natural. The usage of the cell phone was incredibly natural. I couldn't catch the brand, but you might know, but they're very modern little snazzy phones for the most part. So I was really impressed by the brand name bags and shoes, etc. Just a part of the housing development. Stores selling flat screen TVs. Now, I don't know how long that's been on the shelf, and it looks like it's been open, but flat screen monitors, I'm sorry. Electricity, we saw there was only an outage in one building. They didn't know we were coming. They just probably weren't prepared for any guests. It was a cultural exhibition. For the most part, other than the fact that they use absolutely no street lights, so it is very pitch black on the streets at night. Relatively solid electricity everywhere that we looked. When we went out with the British diplomats, they took us to a part of town that was very, very well lit. And my favorite, the Pyongyang Hotel. Now, we've heard from both sides of the story. First of all, they let us go take pictures of it. They let us go up to it, well, at least as far as you see Ambassador Pritchard in this picture. Before, we couldn't go anywhere near it. Some people, if you asked them what their experience with the hotel, they were asking, what's that? And their North Korean escorts would say, what's what? Now, from what we learned, this is only being given a facade. A RASCOM, the company commissioned to complete it using Chinese labor, is only actually finishing the outside. You see that external elevators had to be added in order to finish the construction because the elevator shafts on the inside were structurally unsound. And the North Korean people have been told that the construction workers are afraid of heights, so all the construction happens at night, which might explain why they don't see more construction happening or Chinese labor being used, I'm not sure. But that was really interesting to me because now they're very proud to show it off. And then cars. So many more cars just 18 months later for me to see. A lot of new imports, a lot of SUVs. I saw the same cars that I feel like everybody in the Midwest is driving, and I'm terrible with car names, but a lot more SUVs this time around, a lot of new imports. And again, these pictures will all be up online later and on our Flickr website. Newly painted, this is a taxi. The British diplomats told us there are taxis most places now, whereas before foreigners weren't allowed to take a taxi without their minder. That's starting to change. Even if it's not officially marked as a taxi, there are quite a few cars operating like taxis. Again, just more cars in 18 months later than I saw the first time. This again is really brief, but we did leave the city. We traveled at 135 kilometers the entire way to Mount Mill. Yeah, thank you. And along the way, of course, there are no turnoffs other than to go to Yangbyan and to go to, I forget where else. But you'll see lots of pictures online. They were difficult to show you. We saw the factories with the smoke coming out of them. It was a Sunday, so we saw a lot of volunteering happening in the fields. But again, we traveled at 135 kilometers an hour the entire way. One of our escorts, and I show this picture because you can see the road. It's relatively well maintained. Of course, there are no other cars on it. And he surprised me because he was very well dressed, very articulate, very young. His English was brilliant. He's seen the world. He watches all the shows and knows all the news going on everywhere. He can tell you about the Brigham Young University versus New Mexico women's soccer game. So it was a very different experience with him than a year and a half ago with our previous escorts. Not least of which because he was wearing very high fashion and changed often. And we saw a lot of construction projects. What's this hotel's name? Pyongyang, or I forget. They're completely redoing it, and we saw a lot of construction camps. The military were entirely in charge of it, so we saw a lot of temporary housing. They don't let you take pictures, so I snuck a few, but the construction projects going on had at least, I would say, hundreds and hundreds of military camps set up around to finish the hotel. And I don't have any more pictures to show at the moment, but what was interesting was all of this, according to the British diplomats and the North Koreans alike, is attributed to the 150-day campaign. They're currently in the 100-day campaign to finish everything that the 150-day campaign did not finish, but that most of the changes between 18 months before and now that we saw happened in the 150-day campaign, we were told. That's
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed you didn't put my favorite photo up.
Oh, I was going to.
And I have to
It's
relate,
online.
this is an anecdotal story. We were leaving Pyongyang, going through customs. Customs is manned by military, very smart-looking people. I went up to check out, get my passport there, and I saw next to me, in